All right, hello, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about validation. And this is one of those topics that I think is really, really important for all of us to learn, not only in our relationship with ourselves and how we speak to ourselves and how we communicate with ourselves and how we interact with ourselves, but also with how we speak to and interact with other people. Because validation is one of these things that can actually completely transform the way that you approach yourself and the realizations and the revelations and the amount of growth that you are able to achieve simply through learning how to validate yourself is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And also, it has the power to completely transform the way you interact with other people and your relationships and your communication with other people. And I think that it can also really help us to develop what I think is much needed empathy and the capacity to understand others in a way that we may be struggling to understand others, and the capacity to start to see past the way people are acting and kind of just like the polarization of how we see each other as right and wrong and good and bad and all of these things, and how learning how to validate the perspectives of others can really help us again to develop this level of compassion and empathy and true understanding for how the world is and why people are the way that they are and why they do the things that they do. And this can be something that is actually deeply nourishing and supportive for us and for our worldview and for how we are going to go out into the world and try to make it a better place. It can also clear up a lot of cognitive dissonance. It can help us really understand things that we may be struggling to understand. It can help us understand people in a way that we may be struggling to understand. And then also understanding that learning to validate is not the same thing as agreeing that someone that you're validating, including yourself, is right, or that how they're seeing things is how they are, or any of this, right? That learning how to validate yourself and learning how to validate others is not the same thing as saying that you agree, and it is not the same thing as saying that you're going to stay here forever, that you're going to stay in this perspective forever, that you're going to stay in this place forever, that you're going to stay in this emotion forever, that other people are going to stay in their perspective and their emotion and their way of being forever. It's a way of coming into reality, and it's a way of coming into landing where we are right now so that we can understand where we are right now. We can get our needs met where we are right now. We can help others get their needs met where they are right now, and then we can move forward. Okay, so it's a very dynamic concept, and it's a very emotionally mature concept to learn how to validate without making validation mean that you're saying, okay, this is how it actually is, this is the truth, I agree with you, I agree with myself, this is where I'm going to stand, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. That it is complex, okay? And finally, understanding just how deeply validation can actually be the foundation for positive change that we are trying to get to by not validating ourselves and not validating others. This can be like a profound turning point for a lot of us. So this is why I think talking about validation and the complexity of validation and how we can use validation to help us better understand ourselves, better understand the world, and how we can use validation to help us figure out where we can be best of service is so important. Okay? So I'm really excited to talk about validation today. I'm really excited to dive into all the complexity and the nuance here. So I hope that you're also excited. And yeah, this is one of those things that me as someone who's very on the spectrum, right? And I tend to live in a world where truth is the ultimate thing. Like, truth is the thing that I want. Real reality is the ultimate goal of my kind of way of thinking and my way of being. And that means that I have spent a lot of my life in a situation where I have been very offensive to a lot of people, okay? Where I have not been able to validate where people are at and why they are feeling what they're feeling and why they're seeing things the way that they're seeing them. And being in this very kind of, not intentionally, but it came across very confrontational stance of when someone came to me with a problem, or someone came to me with a hurt feeling, or someone came to me with whatever it is that they're struggling and they're hurting and they're not in a good place. My initial response, my initial reaction to that was always to be like, where are you seeing things wrong? Where are you incorrect in your perception? Where are you incorrect in the things that you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, how you're trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve? And how can we problem solve and how can we fix this so that you are coming into alignment with real reality? And isn't that the best thing ever, right? So people would come to me with their problems, people would come to me with their emotions, they would come to me with their whatever it is that they're struggling with. And my initial reaction was to be like, oh, okay, I see what you did there, right? You saw this wrong. That's not what they really meant. Oh, I can see that you're trying to achieve this goal and the way that you're doing it is definitely not going to get you there. And here's what's wrong with that. And that, to me, was loving. That's what felt like the most loving thing for me to do in the moment, was to like help people figure out real reality so that they could get the results that they wanted, or help people to see where they were seeing things incorrectly so they could be like, oh, okay, right, the way that I'm seeing it is wrong, and that means good. The thing, where I think I'm stuck or where I think this is the only way or whatever is wrong, and so I can fix it and I can change it and I can have something better. And wouldn't you know, the response that I got from people for years and years and years was not, oh, thank you, Allie, for showing me the error of my ways. It was offense. It was people saying, you're just being mean. You just want to be right. You're horrible. You're mean. You're making me feel bad about myself. That was a big one. And for a very, very, very long time, this was super confusing to me. I was always just like, I do not understand why you think I'm trying to make you feel bad. I do not understand why you think I'm being mean. I do not understand why you think this is a bad thing. I'm helping you see where you're wrong so that you can do something different and get a better result. And isn't that what you want, right? Like, you're hurting and you're in pain because you're seeing it wrong or because you're approaching it incorrectly. And me giving you the answer or telling you how you're wrong, shouldn't that be the thing that makes you feel better? And for years and years and years, I just could not understand why people were responding to me with this, you're mean and you're just trying to make me feel bad about myself. And that is because when we are hurting, when we are struggling, when we are suffering, when we got our feelings hurt by someone, when we want something we're not getting, when we're getting something we don't want, when we're in that initial phase of being hurt and being uncomfortable and not getting what we want and all of this stuff, we don't want solutions. Okay? This is the very first thing that we need to understand about ourselves as human beings and about other people as human beings. When we are struggling, when we are hurting, when we are scared, when we are not doing well, when we are in a place where life is not going how we want it to go, we are in our emotions, right? We are emotional beings. We are in our feelings. We are hurting. We are struggling. We are having emotions. The very last thing we want when we are in that state, and the very last thing that anyone else wants when they are in that state, is to feel like someone is telling them that they are wrong, that we are wrong, that we are seeing something wrong, that we are doing something wrong, that there is a mistake happening. And as much as our logical minds might think, when we're struggling and we're hurting and we're seeing something wrong, the best thing to do is to confront people with facts, to confront ourselves with facts, to say, this is wrong, you can't do this, this is da da da. That is only ever going to drive us deeper into what we're doing, into lockdown, into defense, into doing more of what we're already doing. Because we, as much as we might want to believe that we are logical, reasonable human beings, the best of us, we are emotional beings. And we need to deal with our emotions first. If we are going to change anything, if we are going to evolve, if we are going to figure out why what we're doing isn't working, if we're going to change our perspective, if we're going to change our perception, if we're going to evolve the way that we're doing things, if any of these amazing positive things are going to happen, they are going to happen first through a place of love and safety, because we are emotional beings. Okay? This is the ultimate truth of how to deal with ourselves and others. We need to start to understand that when we are dealing with any situation where we are in pain, where others are in pain, where we're not getting what we want, where we're struggling, where we're suffering, where we have these really strong ideas of how reality is that are harmful to ourselves or harmful to others, that cause us to do things that are harmful to ourselves and harmful to others. If we want to change that, if we want to evolve that, if we want to find reality, if we want to move in the direction of personal growth, we are always going to have to deal with our emotions first. We are always going to have to deal with the emotions of others first. And as much as that is incredibly challenging to do, because again, we live in a world where our emotions are not valued, they're not respected, they're not understood, and we treat ourselves and we treat others as though we are these intellectual robots who can just be given information and we can just use it and that will change how we are. But this is not the truth. This is not how we actually function. We need to be held in our emotions first. And then transformation can happen. Okay? So this is why. This is the bottom line secret to why validation, number one, is the most important thing we will ever do if we want to change ourselves or if we want to change others. We need to learn to address our emotional selves first, and then we can deal with our intellectual selves. And that is what validation does for us. Okay. So let's start first with learning to validate ourselves. All right? When anyone works with me one-on-one, when anyone gets into my mystery school, when anyone interacts with my work, the very first thing that you're going to notice with working with me and the tool and the baseline technique that I use in helping you to develop a self-loving relationship with yourself is the tool of validation. And for a lot of us, this is really hard and really uncomfortable because many of us have spent our entire lives being invalidated by our caregivers, by the world around us, by culture. We've been told over and over and over again that how we feel is wrong, that what we're doing is wrong, that how we're acting is wrong, that we're not good enough, that if we're in pain, that this means we are broken, bad, wrong, shameful, guilty, sinners, and we need to fix ourselves and we need to change ourselves. Okay? Most of us are working from this place of having a default of invalidating ourselves. So when we get triggered by someone, rather than being able to say, okay, I'm being triggered, I must have a reason for why I'm being triggered. This is happening for a reason. I'm not just broken. I'm not just terrible. We either blame and shame and guilt ourselves for being triggered, right? I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't shut my emotions down around my family. I shouldn't get angry when someone does something in public that is mean to me. I shouldn't be angry with people. I shouldn't get sad. I shouldn't get triggered into my childhood. I shouldn't. Or we automatically go into how horrible and evil and terrible the other person is, whoever has triggered us. We tell ourselves how terrible they are, how awful they are. And we immediately go into this shame, blame, guilt cycle of invalidating. Yeah? When we get hurt, when someone hurts us, when we go through a breakup, when someone hurts our feelings, most of the time, we are not able to just be upset about what happened. Rather, we go into, what did I just do to cause that? How was that my fault? Why did I manifest that? Why did I bring that into my reality? What's wrong with me that they did that? Why can't they love me? We go into people pleasing. We go into, how can I earn their love back? What did I do wrong? You see? We invalidate ourselves. When we're sad, when we're upset about something, we tell ourselves, oh, you shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't be angry. Those aren't positive emotions. Those aren't, enlightened ways of seeing things. You can't be mad at your caregivers. You can't be mad at your coworkers. You can't be mad at your friends. You need to figure out what you just did wrong. If something doesn't go the way you want it to go, if we are trying to achieve some sort of goal and we're going for it and it's not working out, again, many of us go into a state of shame, blame, guilt. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I achieve it? Why does it seem to be that everyone else can do this and I can't? What's wrong with me that everyone else is achieving all of these things and I'm not achieving them? And this sucks. Or we start fighting with reality. We start being like, no, it's gonna work. If I just keep doing this, this technique of trying to get this job and trying to figure out what my future is by figuring out what my career is going to be, or trying to please the people around me, or trying this diet, or trying that way. If I'm going to force reality to give me what I want by just continuing to go and go and go and go and ignore how I'm feeling and ignore the reality, ignore the results, and just keep pressing forward. Yeah? We live in this world where we are constantly invalidating ourselves. We're invalidating our feelings. We're invalidating our experience. We're invalidating the reality of what we're experiencing. We're invalidating reality. We're just in this constant state of not accepting what is. And so when I start to talk about validating ourselves, and especially in my one-on-one work, this tends to be something that I work with people on over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because the tendency to invalidate ourselves is so deep and so programmed in there that most people don't even catch it when it's happening. They can't see that they're in a state of invalidation. They can't see that they are writing themselves off, that they are 10 steps down the road of storytelling and completely writing off their own experience and their own emotions and what they're feeling. And that in doing that, they are blocking themselves from being able to see how actual reality works and being able to actually make positive change. Okay? So again, there is this part of us, and it's not necessarily intellectual. It's not something you're thinking in your head. But there's a part of us that truly believes that if I invalidate myself enough, if I make myself wrong enough, if I tell myself I shouldn't feel angry enough, if I tell myself I shouldn't feel sad enough, if I tell myself I can just please them, or I can just do this, or I need to be this way, or whatever, enough, that we are going to fix ourselves, we're going to change how we feel, we're going to improve ourselves, and then life is going to be the best. Yes? It's that childhood reaction response that says, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, that means I am doing something wrong, and I need to fix myself, and I need to change myself, and that is how I am going to get what I want. And as soon as we go into that, we are obfuscating ourselves from being able to see what's actually happening. So we are obfuscating reality from ourselves. And therefore, we are cutting ourselves off from being able to move towards something better eventually. Because as soon as we cut ourselves off from how we are feeling, what we are experiencing, what's really true and real for us in this moment, we put ourselves into fear mode, because that's going to feel like rejection. And again, many of us don't recognize this. We don't see it because this is just the water we're swimming in. This is just the pattern. We think we're empowering ourselves. We think we're seeing reality objectively. We truly believe that when we tell ourselves, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't feel this way, I shouldn't see it this way, I need to change what I'm doing something wrong, how can I fix myself, how can I change myself, We really believe that we're seeing reality clearly. We truly believe that this is objective truth and that this is going to get us to where we want to go. But in real reality, most of the time, we are blaming ourselves for something that is a natural response to what's happening. We are blaming ourselves for our emotional response. We are blaming ourselves for our sadness, for our anger, for the way that we are being triggered, for how we're responding, right? We go into our coping mechanisms, our people pleasing, our lashing out, our whatever it is that we do to deal with our emotions that we don't know how to deal with. And we don't know why we're doing it. And it's all because we don't know how to validate ourselves first. When we don't validate ourselves, we put ourselves into a state of fear because that feels like rejection. That feels like someone is telling us that we're wrong and bad and stupid. Yes? That feels empowering for a second because we think, I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to change myself. I'm going to stop being angry. I'm going to stop being sad. I'm going to stop doing these bad habits. I'm going to stop doing my coping mechanisms. I'm going to stop being a people pleaser. I'm going to be a people pleaser, right? I'm going to please them. I'm going to change them. I'm going to achieve my goal. And we're just down in this cycle over and over and over and over again. Because we don't know how to stop and validate ourselves for where we're at. Okay? So this constant self-invalidation. This is where we need to start if we really want to change our lives. If we really want to learn how to give ourselves compassion and curiosity. If we really want to set ourselves up to be able to see reality for how it actually is and to be able to align with that. The first step is not problem solving, is not fixing ourselves, is not figuring out how our emotions are wrong and how our reactions are wrong and how our perceptions are wrong. It's not changing our coping mechanisms, changing the way that we cope and that we numb and stimulate. It's not getting rid of people pleasing. It's not becoming more organized and more efficient in life. It's not finding the career we're supposed to have. It's not figuring out the diet. This is not ever going to be the first step in figuring out what our steps are to get to where we want to go or to changing our emotions or whatever it is that we're wanting to do. The first step is always going to be validating where we are. Because when we can learn to validate where we are, two magical things happen. Number one, we come out of fear and defense and programming. Okay? So when we are in that state of invalidating ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way, this shouldn't be happening, I shouldn't be acting this way, I shouldn't be doing my coping mechanism, I shouldn't be doing my bad behaviors, I shouldn't be people pleasing, I shouldn't be getting these bad results. If I'm being hurt or rejected or abused by someone, what did I just do wrong? How is this my fault? How should I fix this? If I'm not getting the results that I want, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to figure out? You're triggered by someone. How am I wrong? I shouldn't be triggered. This isn't mature. How can I forgive? How can I stop being angry? How can I stop being sad? Trying to get rid of our emotions. That is not the first step. That is not going to help us see reality, and that is not going to take us where we want to go. The first step is always going to be, what am I feeling right now? And how can I validate that? And this is really hard for a lot of us. Because again, so many of us have been taught that our emotions are just wrong, that our feelings are wrong, that we're not allowed to be angry, we're not allowed to be sad, we're not allowed to be tired, we're not allowed to be triggered, we're not allowed to be upset, we're not allowed to be disappointed, we're not allowed to be whatever it is that we are. We've been trained that if we're being hurt by other people, this means we're doing something wrong. We've been trained that if we're not getting the results that we want, we have to be upset at reality or upset at ourselves. We've been trained to go into fix-it mode because what we're experiencing is wrong and bad, and I need to change it. And that's how most of us operate. And so we miss the very first, most important step of coming into alignment with how reality actually works, which is to validate how we feel right here, right now. Okay, so I want you to practice with me. Whatever just happened in your life, or the next time you're feeling upset, or life doesn't go how you want it to go, you get injured, you're tired, you're sick, someone's mean to you, you don't get the results that you want, whatever it is, you get triggered by your family, you get hurt, you're in an emotional state where you don't feel good. The first thing I want you to do is notice that voice in your head that wants to figure out what you're doing wrong, that wants to blame you, that wants to shame you, that wants to tell you how bad, wrong, and stupid you are, comes up. You might even not be aware of that. You might not come online until you realize you're in your coping mechanism. You're people pleasing. You're binging. You're scrolling social media. You're dumpster diving for love. You're trying to figure out how you can fix yourself to make other people happy. You're daydreaming. You're, on Netflix. You're whatever it is. You might not even notice that you're feeling a feeling until you're deep in your coping mechanism. Wherever it is that you come online that you're feeling something, either you're in shame, blame, and guilt, or you're in your coping mechanism, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? This is what validation looks like in practical terms. We're struggling, we're suffering, we're not getting what we want. We notice somewhere along the line that we're feeling something that is uncomfortable. We're trying to fix ourselves, or we're in our coping mechanism. We want to stop, and we want to actually become aware of what we're feeling. If you do coaching work with me, the biggest question that I'm going to ask you over and over and over again is going to be, and how is that making you feel? Because a lot of people are very good at telling me stories. And then I did this, and then I did that, and then it's this because of my childhood, and da-da-da-da. Okay, but how are you feeling? And I shouldn't be like this, and I shouldn't act like that, and I shouldn't have this response, and I shouldn't have this emotion, and I shouldn't be like this because I'm spiritual, and I've done all this work, and I shouldn't. Okay, how are you feeling? And for a lot of us, we're going to struggle to answer that question. We are so used to invalidating ourselves. We are so used to writing off our emotions, writing off our feelings, writing off what we're actually experiencing, that when we ask ourselves, what am I actually feeling? We're either going to not be able to answer the question, or we're going to think, I'm feeling bad about myself. I'm feeling shameful, I'm feeling bad, I feel guilty, I feel wrong, I feel like I did the wrong thing, okay. That is not a feeling. Shame, blame, and guilt. I'm doing the wrong thing. this is my fault, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be feeling this way, that is not a feeling. That is not how you are feeling. That is the story you are telling yourself about why you feel how you feel. Okay? When you go into shame, blame, and guilt, when you go into trying to fix yourself, that is the story you are telling yourself about how you are feeling. When you go into your coping mechanisms, when you go into your numbing, your self-sabotage, your people-pleasing, your daydreaming, whatever it is that you do, that is how you are dealing with the feeling that you don't know how to feel and validate. But that is not how you are feeling. The story you're telling yourself about your coping mechanism is not how you feel. So when I say, how are you actually feeling? What we are going to need to do is slow down enough to come into our bodies and to actually feel sensationally what we are feeling in our bodies. A tightness in our chest, a tightness in our gut, a closing of our throat, fuzzy in our head, whatever, buzzy. We want to come into body sensation and not stories about the body sensation, not anxiety or guilt or I feel bad, because again, those are stories. Physical sensation. What am I physically feeling? And then as we make room for that, as we make room for that physical feeling, we can start to get into what that physical feeling is actually in terms of an emotion. And we know we're getting to a pure emotion, a real emotion, when the words that we're using are sad, angry, annoyed, joyful, hopeful, scared, repulsed, attracted. This is how we get to what we are actually feeling. All right? So again, if the thing that we're saying that we're feeling is I feel shameful, I feel bad about myself, I feel guilty, I feel numb, that's not how we're feeling. That's a story about how we're feeling. So we want to come back into the body and we're looking for anger, sadness, happiness, repulsion, attraction, these pure emotions. And then we want to validate that we have a good reason for feeling how we're feeling. Even if we don't understand it right now, even if we think it's not an enlightened emotion or it's not the emotion we should be feeling, that's where we need to say, okay, I'm feeling sad about what just happened. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling disappointed. I'm feeling let down. I'm feeling afraid. And we validate that feeling. That is the first step in healing, growth, transformation, and coming into the reality that we want to be in. When we can learn to validate ourselves and our feelings, we are going to shift ourselves out of that problem solving that we're using from childhood coping mechanism. Trying to fix ourselves, blaming and shaming ourselves, trying to argue with reality. Because that, again, is where most of us are living our lives from. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be doing this. This is not the results that should be happening. How do I fix it and how do I change it? And then we just cycle through self-improvement, self-help, personal growth, spiritual teachings that don't ever get us anywhere, all the mind games that we play with ourselves with spirituality, and the fighting with reality over and over again and expecting different results. We all think that we're operating from logic and we think that we're seeing things clearly. I'm just going to get rid of my coping mechanisms. I just need to stop doing these bad habits. I just need to respond differently. I need to stop being triggered. I need to be more loving. I need to blah, 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 blah. And it never gets us anywhere. Because again, we're not validating where we are. And when we don't validate where we are, it's literally like trying to get somewhere before we even know where we are on the map. This is what I want you to think of when you're practicing learning to validate yourself. Learning to validate yourself is not saying, I want to stay here forever. I want to stay in this perspective forever. I want to stay in this circumstance forever. I accept that this is how life is always going to be. I am happy about this. And it's the same thing when we validate another person. When we validate others for how they're feeling and how they're seeing things. That is not the same thing as saying, you're right. That's objective truth. That's where we're going to stay. That's okay. That's not harmful. That's a completely reasonable way of viewing things. That's not what validation is. Validation is helping us figure out where we are on the map. So that if we want to move forward, if we want to move somewhere else, we can actually do that. Because when you don't even know where you are on the map, you can plan the best route possible. But you can't take that route because you don't even know where you are on the map. Do you see what I'm saying? Validation is how we figure out where we are on the map, number one. And number two, it's how we take ourselves out of that state of feeling rejected, abandoned, let down, like we're being told that we're wrong and bad and shitty and shameful, which then just spirals us into doing what we've always done. Do you see what I'm saying here? Most of us have been trying to fix ourselves, trying to fix our relationships, trying to fix our family relationships, trying to fix our bodies, trying to fix our lives, trying to fix our careers from the same place of what am I doing wrong? How is this my fault? What's wrong with me? And how do I change myself? Over and over and over and over again. And we think we're doing the right thing. We truly believe we are seeing reality for how it is. We really believe that our plan is going to work. But we're skipping the phase of validating. And therefore, we're not seeing where we are. We're not seeing what's actually happening. And then we can't actually make a plan to move forward. All we do is we put ourselves into fear, and then we do what we've always done, and we repeat our cycles over and over and over again. We end up in our coping mechanisms. We end up, doing the plan, and the plan fails, and then we don't change, and then we feel bad about ourselves, and then we blame ourselves again, and then we get on the plan again, and then it's over and over. When we validate ourselves, we help ourselves see where we are on the map, and we take ourselves out of fear, and we put ourselves into a state of love. That is the two things that validating does for us. It takes down our defenses, it brings us out of the childhood coping mechanism and into adult reality, into our adult brain, and it helps us figure out where we are in reality. So when you are hurting, when you are struggling, when you're not getting the results that you want, when you're going into shame, blame, and guilt, when you're in your coping mechanism, step one is, what am I actually feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? What does it feel like? What's the emotion? And how can I validate that? And this is exactly what we do when we're dealing with other people. If we really want to change someone's opinion, to help them see the error of their ways, to change their minds about something, to convince them to see things in a different way, we cannot start with, here are all the facts and reasons why you're wrong. We have to start with emotions. I can see why you see what you see. I can see why you believe what you believe. I can see why you're doing what you're doing. As deplorable as it might be to me, as harmful and terrible and completely oppositional to what I believe is the right thing to do in the world, we need to understand that we all get to where we are because of our experience, because of emotion, because of cognitive bias, because of not seeing things clearly, because of incorrect perception, and we're emotionally attached to where we are. And in order to grow and change and evolve, we need to have emotional safety first. Okay, now again, caveat, if you are in an abusive situation where you are being harmed and someone is literally harming you, it is not your job to reason with them and have validating conversations with them and to be nice to them and all this stuff. I am not saying that. Okay? This is like arguments you're having on the internet, or like debates you're having with family, or how you're dealing with yourself when you're in pain. This is not advice for when you're in an abusive situation, for when you need actual help from someone, or where, okay? I just want to make that clear. This is not universal advice for absolutely every situation. This is normal situations, under normal circumstances, when we're dealing with ourselves or when we're dealing with others in like ideological debates and things like this. This is not abuse situation advice. Okay, so just making that very clear. We validate, I feel how I feel for a reason. You feel how you feel for a reason. You see things how you see things for a reason. And we are starting with, can we understand why? Okay? That is what validation does for us. It takes us out of the childhood coping mechanism that says when I am in pain, it is my fault, or I need to, fight with reality. It takes us out of just ideological debate with people. How to accept hard feelings, right? This is the practice of validation. Is we need to make it okay that we are angry, that we are sad, that we are disappointed. And for most of us, again, a lot of us have deep fear of facing these emotions. We are very afraid of our emotions. We are afraid if I feel my anger, or if I feel my sadness, or if I feel my grief, or if I feel my resentment, or whatever it is, that is going to swallow me up and carry me away. And this is why, again, so much of the work that I do with my clients and with these sessions that I give here, and we learn to develop that witness self so that we can witness our emotions and watch that they don't actually kill us or hurt us or harm us. Because yes, this is true, right? It is very, very real that for a lot of us, acknowledging our emotions is really scary and hard. We have a lot of resistance to acknowledging our emotions because we are afraid of our emotions. We're afraid of what our emotions mean. We're afraid of what our emotions are going to do to us. We're afraid to be sad. We're afraid to be angry. We're afraid to be disappointed. We have a lot of resistance to being scared because, again, we have all of these stories that these emotions are bad and wrong and that they're going to last forever and that they're going to be so intense that we die. But when we can learn to incrementally just say, it's okay that I'm angry. It's okay that I'm sad. It's okay that I'm disappointed. It's okay that life is not going how I want it to go right now. It's okay that I'm upset. It's okay that I'm hurt. This is okay. I can watch this emotion. I can watch this feeling. And it doesn't swallow me up. And I don't die. That's what a lot of us need to practice. Witnessing our emotion and not making up a big story about it, and seeing that, it can be very sensational, it can be very overwhelming for a moment, but if we can just watch it and work through it, it's just an emotion. And it's okay. And it will pass in its intensity. And then, on the other side of that, we can start to get into curiosity around how we might be able to change our perception, how we might be able to do whatever. But for a lot of people, again, like especially in my sessions, we work on this validation step over and over and over and over and over again for weeks and months sometimes, before we even get into how can you see it differently, how can you change your behavior, how can you do things different. Because we need to build that safety with ourselves. We need to build that skill of being in an intense emotion and seeing that it's okay to feel that emotion. And that we can just be sad or be angry or be disappointed. And that it's okay. That we're allowed to be angry with our caregivers. We're allowed to be angry with our family. We're allowed to be disappointed in the ways that they hurt us. We're allowed to be upset that we're not getting what we want. We're allowed to be upset that our bodies aren't functioning how we want them to. We're allowed. We're allowed to have been hurt by how people have treated us in the past. We're allowed to just be upset that people are being mean to us. Right? Because again, so many of us are living these lives where these things are happening. And instead of being able to just validate that and make that okay, we're making up stories upon stories upon stories upon stories about it. The reason they're doing that is because I'm doing this and I shouldn't be doing that and I shouldn't be feeling this and I shouldn't be doing that. And we're not even seeing that we're in storytelling. We truly believe we're seeing reality clearly. We really believe I need to get on this self-help program because 400 steps away from how I'm actually feeling. And so we peel it back, peel it back, peel it back, peel it back, peel it back. And then this is what you're going to realize too, is the more that you validate yourself, the more you're going to figure out what you're actually feeling, and then you're going to be able to figure out what you're actually wanting. And this is why validation is so important. Because many of us are trying to solve a problem without even knowing what we're wanting. We're trying to fix ourselves so that we'll have the perfect not trigger with our family, and then everything will be perfect. And we're not even realizing that the thing that we're wanting is that our family is a safe place for us, where they can just love us and support us. And we truly believe if I just stop being triggered and I stop being mad at them and I take all my walls down and everything's great, they will love me and everything will be perfect. But in real reality, The reason our walls are up, the reason we're defensive, the reason we're triggered is because they are not a safe place for us. And we are never going to fix ourselves enough to make them a safe place. And so to get what we actually want, the solution isn't take all my walls down and stop being triggered and just love them for how they are. The solution is going to be something totally different. In order to actually get what we want, which is to feel safe around them, we are going to have walls and boundaries. And we're going to have to process how they can't show up for us, and we're going to process all, and it's going to be a whole different thing. You see? By validating ourselves, we can then figure out what we actually want. And instead of then going on the diet or doing this spiritual thing or doing that spiritual thing, which we think is going to solve our problem, that we don't even know what we want, we can start to peel it back to what we actually want and then figure out why the thing that we're doing isn't getting us there. Because we're probably not even aware of what we want. So how to accept all emotions in body. For example, I feel rebelness or disagreement a lot. So we start with, it's okay that I feel this way. I am allowed to feel disagreement. I have a good reason for feeling this way, even if I don't understand it, even if other people don't understand it, even if other people can't validate it. This is how I feel. And now can I get curious about why I feel that way? Can I give myself the benefit of the doubt? Okay? So I know I gave you a lot in this. But to kind of sum it up, when you're hurting, when you're in your coping mechanism, when you're in shame, blame, and guilt, come into your body. What are you feeling sensationally? And can you start to register what you're feeling as a pure emotion? Anger, sadness, grief, disappointment, joy, excitement, pleasure. And can you make room to witness that emotion? It is okay that I feel this way. I am allowed to feel this way. I don't have to make up a story about it. I don't have to figure out why I feel this way. I don't have to figure out the solution. I don't have to know anything else beyond that. Can I just validate that I'm feeling what I'm feeling and that I have a good reason for feeling how I'm feeling? And you're going to notice even just doing that is going to take down so much of the intensity and so much of the storytelling and so much of the fixing and the what I need to do about it and all of this stuff. Let's just come back to what are you actually feeling? And can you validate that you have a good reason for feeling that way? And then from there, can you start to get curious about what you actually want? What you're trying to achieve with your self-help and self-improvement and all of these things. What do you think you would get if all of those things were to work out perfectly? What do you actually want? Which will help you understand what it is in this moment that you don't actually want. So can I react to emotion without external validation in a moment? Yes, that is the question, isn't it? We need to learn how to validate our own emotions, even if other people can't. And that is really, really hard. Other people are going to be saying, you shouldn't be feeling this way, you shouldn't think this way, you need to be more mature, you need to da-da-da-da-da. That's the culture we live in. Learning how to say, no, I'm just angry, I'm just sad, I'm just disappointed, is like radical in our culture today. But again, it's the only way to figure out where we are on the map. It's the only way to take ourselves out of our childhood coping mechanisms and then to help us figure out what we actually want and how we're actually going to get there, and why the things that we're doing right now aren't getting us there, because they're probably not coming from a place of real awareness of what we want and why we're doing what we're doing. Okay? And again, this is how we work with other people. Can we start with validating that they have a good reason for believing what they believe and seeing things how they see them, so that at least we can understand where they're coming from. We can still completely disagree. We can disagree with how they're doing things and why they're doing things, but if we're actually going to change someone's mind, a lot of the time we have to start with, okay, I see why you're seeing it this way. We have to level with them. We have to get to where they are first. Make them feel safe. And then we can start to talk about facts. And then we can start to talk about new and different things. And seeing things differently from an emotionally regulated place. Okay, so that's my crash course on validation. I hope it was helpful. I hope you can start to practice it and see it in your own life. Don't take my word for it. Start to see what happens when you actually ask yourself how you're feeling and then validate those feelings. How does that shift the way that you see things, the way you see yourself, the way you respond in life, the way you respond to others, the wisdom that you see about why you're doing what you're doing and what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish and all of this stuff? Try it for yourself. See what validation does for you. Because I promise you, over time, it will completely and radically transform your life. All right? Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. You're doing a great job. You're perfect. Where you are makes perfect sense. So if you start to validate yourself, you'll figure out where you are on your map, what you actually want, what you actually need, and how you can get there. Okay? Okay. I will see you when I see you. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you again later.